I paid for my daughter's life while her stepdad got the credit, then she thanked me as her ATM. Hi, I'm Caleb, 49, and last week I buried the last illusion I had about fatherhood. Not because of death. Because my daughter stood up at her medical school graduation party, raised a glass, looked right at me, and said, "To the man who calls himself my father, thanks for being my ATM." Everyone laughed. People I had known since she was in diapers, people I had once invited to birthday parties and paid for hotel rooms at her dance competitions. They clapped. One guy high-fived her. Her stepfather, of course, beamed with pride. I didn't get angry. I didn't walk out. I sat there with a smile carved into my face like stone while my insides cracked open. I'd spent 24 years paying for everything she ever touched. Braces, ballet, rent, medical school. I took on second shifts and slept in my car to make tuition. Her mother remarried fast, chose better PR over substance, and paraded her new husband around as Dad 2.0, while I paid the bills in silence. And that night? That speech? That was my reward. ATM. Not father. Not even. Thanks for the stethoscope I engraved with your name. Just a punchline. When the party ended, I didn't say goodbye. I drove home in silence. No music. No phone. Just me and the echo of my daughter's toast. And somewhere between the freeway exit and my front door, I made the decision. I was done. Not with fatherhood. With pretending. With financing the life of someone who couldn't even say my name with respect. The next morning, I called my lawyer. I changed the will. Everything to Max, my dog. The only creature who's met every door with joy and never asked for a single cent. I froze her cards, changed the locks, and boxed up her things. When she came home and found her life on the porch, she left voicemails, first confusion, then panic, then rage. She said it was a joke. That I was overreacting. I wasn't reacting. I was remembering. All the times she left me out of milestones. All the times she sent one-word texts, money, like that was my name. All the nights I begged the universe for one real conversation that never came. I finally understood. She didn't need a father. She needed funding. And I was no longer offering grants. The first time she called me Marcus, instead of Dad, I laughed it off. Thought maybe it was a phase, maybe something she'd picked up from her college friends trying to sound more grown up. But it stuck. Marcus, can you send $200 for groceries? Marcus, my rent's due Friday. Marcus, I need a new laptop for rotations. Mine's acting weird. Never. Please. Never. Thank you. Just requests, rapid fire, like I was a vending machine with infinite credit and no need for kindness. But I gave. Every time. Because I told myself that's what fathers do. They show up. They provide. They hold steady even when ignored. Her mother once told me I was too soft. That she'd never respect me if I didn't make her work for it. And maybe she was right. But I didn't care about respect back then. I cared about being there. I was the one who showed up at every parent-teacher night, even when her mom sent regrets and her stepfather couldn't find parking. I was the one who watched her dissect frogs in high school and stayed quiet when she called him Dad in front of the teacher. I figured, let her have both. Kids shouldn't have to choose. But the choosing happened anyway. Quietly. Gradually. She chose ease. Flash. Image. She chose someone who didn't pay the bills but had a better smile in family photos. An idiot that I was kept handing over my wallet like love would eventually be noticed if it was expensive enough. It wasn't. The day I changed my will, I felt light. I walked Max for an extra mile. I opened the curtains. I played music in the kitchen while making breakfast like a man who had been quietly drowning for a decade and finally stood up. Her belongings stayed by the front gate for 3 days. No pickup. Just silence. Then one night, she called 32 times in a row. I let everyone go to voicemail. The 33rd I answered. Not out of guilt. Out of clarity. What do you want? I asked. Her voice cracked. To talk. To explain. I said. You already did. In front of 100 people with a microphone. Then I hung up. 2 nights later, I sat on the couch, Max's head in my lap, watching the security footage on my phone. There she was, my daughter, standing at the edge of the porch, staring at the 6 boxes I'd instructed the security team to pack. One suitcase had a sticker from a Cancun trip I hadn't known about. Another box held the books I bought her, the one she used to text me about at midnight. Can you overnight this? The professor moved the reading up. I always did. I never asked why. She stood there like the ground had shifted beneath her feet. Because it had. She wasn't used to. No. Not from me. She lifted the phone. Started pacing. My phone buzzed on the table. 9 missed calls, then 10, then 17. I didn't move. I watched her through the screen like I was watching a stranger walk through the museum of my own misplaced loyalty. Then the voicemail came. Dad, she said, and the word hit like a shard of glass. Please. I didn't mean it. It was a joke. Everyone laughed. I thought you'd laugh too. Please. I didn't think you'd actually shut me out. I played it 3 times. Not because I was unsure, but because I needed to confirm what I heard in her voice. She didn't sound sorry. She sounded surprised. And that's what broke me harder than the speech, the fact that after everything, she truly believed I would just swallow it. Again. I poured a drink, sat outside under the stars, and made the kind of decision you make once. The kind that cuts deep and heals slow. I pulled up her contact. Blocked. Then I did the same to her mother. Her stepfather. Every cousin who texted to say, "She's young, give her a break." Every friend who tagged me in the video clip with crying laughing emojis. I was done being the man who raised a woman who thought humiliation was humor and unconditional love meant unlimited funds. Let her sit with the echo of her own words. Let her feel the silence that used to be filled with my blind devotion. Let her realize that jokes cost something when they come wrapped in cruelty. And let the world know, I am no one's ATM. The messages stopped for about a day and a half. Then came the shift. I knew it would. I've lived long enough to recognize the cycle of entitlement, cry, deny, rage. And right on cue, the rage arrived. It started with a text. "You're pathetic. Real fathers don't abandon their kids over a joke." Then another. "You made me look like a fool. I had to explain to everyone why I didn't have access to my own place. Do you even care how this makes me look?" I read them both while sipping coffee and scratching Max behind the ears. He yawned, blinked up at me, and I swear he looked more emotionally mature than half the people in that party room. I didn't reply. I was done replying. I didn't need her to understand. I needed her to stop believing I was weak. I had spent 24 years training her to see me as indestructible, as reliable, as ever-present. And that's on me. I had trained her into thinking my love had no spine. But I was done being the cushion she landed on every time she wanted to jump off something reckless. Done being the faceless, voiceless supporter at the edge of her life. Her speech wasn't an accident. It was rehearsed. Practiced. Maybe even written out and reviewed by her friends. It was meant to sting. It was designed to brand me. And it worked. But what she didn't expect was that the brand would cauterize my last nerve and end the cycle. The real pain didn't come from her insults. It came from realizing I had allowed this. I had funded this. I had given her the tools to build a podium and insult me from it. So I changed the rules. I was no longer the financier of my own humiliation. I wrote a final email. Not emotional. Just legal. "Dear daughter, you no longer have access to my accounts, my property, or my future estate. I wish you well in your career and hope you build a life that doesn't rely on cruelty disguised as wit. This is not an act of vengeance. This is self-preservation. Sincerely, Marcus." I attached a PDF copy of the updated will. And then I hit send. 2 hours later, my phone exploded. Not figuratively. Literally pinging so fast the screen froze. I had to force restart it. 27 missed calls from her. 12 from her mother. 1 from a blocked number I can only assume was her stepfather doing his best bad cop routine. Then came the cousins. "You always were dramatic," one message said. "She was just trying to be funny." "Can't believe you're nuking the family over this," said another. "Don't punish her for being young." Young? She was 24. A licensed doctor. Old enough to sign prescriptions and deliver babies, but apparently too fragile to understand that mocking your father on a microphone might have consequences. Still, I didn't argue. I didn't reply. Not because I was being petty, but because I had finally understood something no one had ever taught me. Peace doesn't come from being understood. It comes from stopping the performance. I had spent my whole life trying to earn applause from people who never even clapped when I entered the room. Now I was done performing. She posted something on Instagram that night, a picture of her standing on the steps of the house, captioned, "Some parents only love conditionally. I guess I was just a transaction to him." The comments rolled in. "You deserve better. Cut him off, sis." Gaslighting at its finest. I didn't comment. I didn't even read them all. But I saved the post. Not out of bitterness. For the record. To remind myself that no matter what story she told, I knew the truth. And the truth was this. I wasn't cutting her off because she joked. I was cutting her off because for 10 years, I was treated like an option, not a parent. Every meal I paid for was a footnote. Every late-night transfer was invisible. Every holiday skipped was a shrug. And then came the mic drop. To the man who claims to be my father, thanks for being my ATM. No one defended me in that room. No one pulled her aside. No one said, "That was too far." So now, I was saying it. That was too far. And I don't care if it's inconvenient that I finally stood up. I told my lawyer to file a notice with the estate trustee. No inheritance. No trust. No shared assets. Everything goes to Max's care and a new scholarship fund in my mother's name for students with absent parents who showed up anyway. Because I know that kind of kid. I was that kind of kid. I didn't check my phone for the rest of the weekend. Turned it off, slid it into a drawer like a wound I refused to poke. I mowed the lawn. Took Max to the lake. Cooked an actual breakfast, eggs, toast, coffee made slowly instead of on autopilot. And for the first time in years, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt earned. Monday morning, I checked the security footage out of habit. She had come back. Sunday afternoon. Wearing designer sunglasses and a pout. She stood by the porch like a guest arriving early to a hotel that hadn't confirmed her booking. She paced, knocked once, then found the boxes still there, untouched. I watched as she kicked one of them hard enough to knock it over. Something fell out, a framed photo of the two of us from her third-grade graduation. I had carried her on my shoulders that day. She looked so happy. She picked up the frame. Stared at it. I paused the footage there. Because for just a second, her face cracked. Not in rage. Not in smug disbelief. In realization. She sat on the top step with the frame in her lap, not crying, not calling, just still. And that more than any voicemail got to me. But I didn't call her. That stillness wasn't my invitation. It was hers to sit in. Later that night, another message came. No threats. No guilt. Just 6 words. "I miss you. Please call me." I stared at it like it was written in a language I hadn't spoken in years. I didn't know how to read it. Sincerity? Manipulation? Panic? But I didn't answer. Not out of spite. Out of preservation. Because I knew what I'd do if I called. I'd listen. I'd soften. I'd want to fix things. And I couldn't afford that anymore. The next morning, I got up early. Pulled out an old project I hadn't touched in a decade, a guitar I was restoring. I oiled the neck. Cleaned the fretboard. Restrung it. Played a few chords I'd long forgotten. And I smiled. I remembered that there was a version of me that existed before fatherhood turned into self-erasure. A version that still mattered. And slowly, piece by piece, I was starting to rebuild him. A week passed. No new voicemails. No cryptic texts. No surprise visits. Just the low hum of a daughter-sized silence. Then came the email. It wasn't from her. It was from her stepfather, titled, "Let's be reasonable." He opened with compliments. Of course. My daughter's education, her drive, her ambition. "You should be proud of the role you played." Then came the shift. "She's under a lot of stress. You know how young women can be when they're trying to prove themselves." He called her comment ill-advised but harmless. He called my response dramatic. He used phrases like escalating tension and unnecessary fracture. Then he wrote the line that made me close the laptop and laugh. "Let's remember we're all part of the same family. She still sees you as her father." Right. The father she toasted with sarcasm. The father she never invited to speak at graduation. The father whose name is still saved in her phone as Marcus, instead of Dad. I didn't reply to him. I forwarded it to my lawyer and added a single note. File with existing communications. I wasn't playing this game anymore. What they were used to was the old me, the man who would buckle under guilt, who would rush in to be the bigger person, while they handed me the smallest role. They didn't know this version of me. The version who had stopped treating blood as sacred when it showed up dirty. That same week, I started something new, a small side project I had put off for 20 years. A community mentorship program for kids whose parents couldn't or wouldn't show up. I gave it a name I never expected, Father Enough. Because I had finally accepted that being a good parent didn't mean dying quietly under someone else's expectations. It meant modeling what strength looks like when it's kind, not spineless. The first meeting was held at the rec center on Maple and 12th. 6 kids. 3 volunteers. One boy, maybe 11, asked me, "Do dads get tired?" I looked him in the eye and said, "All the time. But good ones don't stay tired forever." And I realized I wasn't tired anymore. Not because I'd stopped caring, but because I'd stopped bleeding for someone who only showed up with knives. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the envelope arrived, plain white, hand-addressed, no return name. I recognized the handwriting instantly. Her letters always slanted a little to the left, like they were in a rush to outrun accountability. I sat on the porch for a while before opening it. Max curled up at my feet, his tail occasionally thumping against the floor like he knew something important was about to happen. The letter was short. Just 1 page. No apologies. No explanations. Just, "I know I hurt you. I don't know how to undo it. I just wanted to say I finally see it now. What you did. What it cost you. I don't expect anything from this. I just needed you to know. I see it." That was it. No promises to do better. No attempt to re-enter my life. Just acknowledgement. Raw and stripped bare. And for the first time, I didn't feel the reflex to respond. Because it wasn't a request. It was a whisper from the other side of a burned bridge, one that might never be rebuilt. And maybe that was okay. Not every fracture needs to be mended. Some just need to be marked, understood, and moved around. I folded the letter and placed it in the same drawer where I kept the stethoscope I gave her. The one with her name engraved on it. The one she never mentioned. Right next to it was the photo I'd rescued from the porch, her on my shoulders, 3rd grade graduation, cotton candy in one hand and a gummy smile. That version of her, that little girl I would always love. But love doesn't mean standing in the same fire twice. So I went back to the kitchen, brewed a fresh pot of coffee, and sat down to sketch a few ideas for the scholarship fund in my mother's name. It felt poetic. Full circle. She had raised me to be a giver, but never a doormat. And now, her legacy would be helping kids who needed more than just money, they needed someone who saw them. The phone buzzed once. A cousin, probably trying to stir something. I didn't even look. Because I was finally busy living my life, not proving it had value. That weekend, I took Max on a long drive up the coast. We didn't have a destination, just a cooler in the back, an old road trip playlist I hadn't touched in years, and the kind of silence that wraps around you like a worn-in hoodie. Halfway up Highway 1, I pulled into a turnout overlooking the cliffs. Salt air, gulls circling, the rhythmic crash of waves against the rock below. I sat on the hood of the truck, Max beside me, head high, nose twitching at the breeze. And I thought about legacy. Not the inheritance kind. Not the who gets what when I am gone paperwork. I'd already settled all that. Max would be taken care of. The scholarship fund was in motion. The house was finally quiet. I meant real legacy. The kind that isn't carved on tombstones, but whispered in memories. For so long, I thought my legacy would be her. That if I could help her become something great, if I could shoulder the cost, the neglect, the silence, then I'd have done my job. But what had I really taught her? That love means sacrifice? That fathers are expendable providers? That disrespect is forgivable if it's dressed up as ambition? No. My legacy wouldn't be her resume. It would be my recovery. My legacy would be this: a man standing on the edge of the ocean, finally alone in the best way. A man who stopped chasing gratitude and started planting peace. I pulled out my phone, took a single photo of Max against the backdrop of that endless sea, and saved it under a new album, Life After Permission. Because that's what this was. For the first time in decades, I wasn't waiting to be invited into my own worth. I had stopped asking if I mattered. I knew. And as we drove back, Max asleep in the passenger seat, I thought, if she ever does come back, not with tears, not with a speech, but with real change, I'll listen. But I won't rearrange my life again. Not for guilt. Not for blood. Not for applause. That part of me is over. This part, the quiet, the certainty, the man I became without needing anyone to notice, that's the legacy I'm finally proud of. It was the smell that got me. A Saturday morning, sunlight pushing through the blinds, bacon on the stove, coffee brewing. I hadn't realized how long it had been since the house smelled like breakfast. Not rush takeout, not burnt toast eaten standing up between wire transfers, but real, slow, deliberate morning. I was cracking eggs into a pan when Max barked once sharp, alert. Someone was at the gate. I walked to the camera monitor, and there she was. My daughter. No suitcase. No boxes. Just a hoodie, sneakers, and a folded piece of paper clutched in her hands. She didn't press the bell. She didn't wave. She just stood there, looking up at the house like it had grown teeth. I watched for a minute, then opened the intercom. "Can I help you?" I asked, flat calm. Her head snapped up. I hadn't spoken to her in almost 3 months. "I don't want anything," she said quickly. "Not money. Not to come in. I wanted to give you this." She held up the paper like it might dissolve if she squeezed too hard. "I know I can undo it. I know I hurt you. And I know you might never want me back. But I needed to say it out loud, even if you never opened the door." She placed the letter inside the gate, careful, almost reverent, and stepped back. "I'm going now," she said. "I just wanted you to know I don't see you as an ATM anymore. I see you." Then she walked away. I didn't go outside right away. I finished cooking. Ate breakfast with Max, sipped my coffee slow. Then I went out, picked up the envelope, and slid it into the drawer next to the others. I didn't open it. Not yet. Not because I wasn't curious, but because for once I wasn't rushing to forgive. I was letting the moment be exactly what it was, a step. Not a reunion. Not a fix. Just a daughter finally speaking without expecting applause. And me? I wasn't hoping for anything anymore. That's what made it feel real. 3 weeks later, I opened the letter. Not because the ache came back, it hadn't. I opened it because I realized that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing what to carry forward. Inside was a handwritten note, sloppy, unguarded, vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen from her since she was a child. "Dad, I've been trying to write this for days. I don't expect anything. No response, no invitation. I just wanted to tell you that I've been sitting with everything. The speech. The years before it. The silence after. I know what I said was cruel. I meant it to be clever. I thought I was being witty. What I was being was ungrateful. And small. I told myself for years that you were just doing your job as a dad. That you owed me those things because that's what parents do. But I see now what you gave me wasn't obligation. It was sacrifice. Relentless, quiet, invisible sacrifice. And I mocked it. Publicly. I humiliated you in front of people who should have stood up for you. Who laughed instead. I'm sorry. Not sorry like damage control. Not sorry like let's move on. I'm sorry like a woman who finally understands what it means to be loved by someone who never asked for credit. I don't want to come home. I want to earn the right to be part of your life again someday. So for now, I'll just say thank you. For the braces. The books. The tuition. The silence. The stethoscope. I carry all of it now. I set the letter down and just breathed. Not in pain. Not in anger. Just in awe of how long it had taken for those words to arrive and how deeply they landed once they did. I didn't call her. I didn't write back. But that night, I walked to the closet, pulled out the engraved stethoscope she never used, and placed it in a small wooden box alongside the photo of us at the fair and the 2 letters she'd sent. Then I labeled the box, things that finally meant something. Because they did now. And I did something I hadn't done in years. I sat at the piano in the front room and played. My fingers were stiff, the notes clumsy, but I didn't stop. Max curled up beside me. Outside, the wind pushed softly through the trees like a whisper that no longer hurt. I played until the light faded. Then I stood, stretched, and whispered into the quiet. I forgive you. Not because she asked for it. Not because she deserved it. But because I had already chosen peace. And peace doesn't wait for permission. I'm not the ATM anymore. I'm not the silent investor in someone else's image. I'm the man who stayed standing. Who set a boundary and kept it. Who found his voice, even when no one clapped for it. I'm her father. And for the first time in a long, long time. That feels like enough.